Most people think courage means not being afraid. It doesn't. Courage is what you do while fear is still in the room. And if you've been avoiding fear instead of facing it, this video is for you. We're taught to wait until we feel confident, ready, or fearless before we act. But that moment almost never comes. Fear doesn't disappear when you're just about to do something meaningful. It shows up because you do. In this video, I'm going to show you what courage actually looks like in real life. Not the dramatic kind, not the movie version, but the quiet, uncomfortable choices that change everything. And once you see it, you'll stop trying to eliminate fear and start moving with it. Here's what no one tells you about fear. When you avoid it, you're not playing it safe. You're training yourself to see the world as more dangerous than it actually is. Every time you dodge the conversation, your nervous system logs it as that was a real threat. Every time you delay a decision, your brain files it under I wasn't capable. Every time you make yourself busy over being honest, you're confirming to yourself, I can't handle this. This is how capable people become smaller over time, not because they lack courage, but because their old playbook stopped telling them what good looks like. And they started organizing their life around avoiding discomfort instead. Most people think that courage is about feeling brave and then acting. That's backwards. Courage is acting when your old metrics don't give you a clear answer anymore and letting your nervous system catch up later. The people I work with who have breakthroughs, they stop waiting for some clarity to arrive and start making moves with what's actually true now, even when it contradicts what used to work. I've seen this pattern repeat again and again with people who are growing fast. Someone gets a promotion, starts a business, steps into a bigger role, and suddenly they become hyper cautious. They second guess themselves in meetings. They overanalyze every decision. They avoid anything that might expose them. They think they're being strategic, but what they're actually doing is protecting an old version of themselves that no longer fits the complexity that they're navigating. Here's what's happening. Your current operating system was built for your last level of complexity. When your life demands more, your nervous system registers that as danger because it is to the old you. The version of you that succeeded at your last level isn't capable to what's required now. And your fear isn't wrong about that. It's just trying to protect something that needs to evolve rather than survive. The problem isn't fear. The problem is treating fear as a stop sign when it's trying to show you what your next move is. The old way says, try to feel safe, then act. The new way says, act toward what's true now, even while feeling unsafe, and let your operating system recalibrate. Let's get very specific about what happens when you organize your life around avoiding discomfort. You don't have the conversation with your manager, so you stay stuck in a role that is too small for you. You don't pitch the idea, so your work stays invisible. You don't name what's not working, so the dysfunction becomes normal. Each avoidance feels minor in the moment, but they compound. You wake up one day and realize your life is being run by what you're not doing. You have engineered a world where you never have to feel exposed, and that world is suffocating. I worked with someone who kept delaying a restructuring conversation with their team. They told themselves they were waiting for the right time, but what they were really doing was delaying the discomfort of disappointing others. The cost? 6 months of confusion, resentment building in the team, and their own credibility eroding. When they finally had the conversation, it only took 20 minutes, but the relief was immediate. Not because it went perfectly, but because they stopped carrying the weight of not doing it. The old way says, avoid discomfort now, deal with the consequences later. The new way says, face discomfort now, create space for what you actually want. One of the biggest misconceptions about courage is that some people have it and some people don't. That's not how it works. Courage isn't a fixed trait, it's a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it, and weaker when you avoid it. Think about the last time you did something hard. Maybe you had a difficult conversation. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you made a decision without all the information. What happened afterwards? The world didn't end. You didn't collapse. You probably felt lighter. That's not because you suddenly became brave. It's because you practice moving toward discomfort instead of away from it. The people I see making the biggest leaps, they don't wait until they feel courageous. They build a habit of acting before they feel ready. One small decision, one uncomfortable conversation, one honest moment, and then another. The old way says, wait until you feel brave enough to act. The new way says, act first and let the feeling of courage follow. Here's what I need you to understand. Fear itself isn't the problem. Fear is information. It tells you this matters. Pay attention. The problem is when you treat fear as a stop sign instead of a signal. When you feel fear and immediately back away, you're teaching yourself, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. I need to stay small to feel safe. But when you feel fear and move toward it anyway, you teach yourself something completely different. I can do hard things. I don't need to feel ready to act. What's true matters more than what's comfortable. I'm not saying you should override your nervous system or push through every boundary. There's a difference between healthy fear, the kind that keeps you safe from actual danger, and developmental fear, the kind that shows up when you're growing. Healthy fear is walking alone in a dark alley at 2 a.m. in the morning. Developmental fear is speaking up in a meeting when you're the most junior person in the room. Your job isn't to eliminate fear. Your job is to learn the difference and act accordingly. The old way says, treat all fear as a warning stop. The new way says, treat developmental fear as an invitation to grow. So what does real courage actually look like in practice? It's not dramatic. It's not a big speech or a bold declaration. Most of the time, it's quiet. Courage looks like sending the email you've been drafting for 3 days, ending the relationship that's been dead for months, sharing the idea before it's perfect, admitting you don't know instead of pretending you do, sitting with uncertainty instead of forcing a decision too soon, asking the question that everyone is thinking about but they won't say. It's not about being fearless. It's about being honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about what you need. Honest about what's not working. The people I see transform the most are people who stop performing competence and start practicing honesty. They stop managing everyone else's comfort and start honoring their own clarity. They stop waiting for permission and start giving it to themselves. The old way says, courage means being fearless and confident. The new way says, courage means acting with integrity, even when you're afraid. Here's what you need to know. If you keep organizing your life around what feels safe, you will stay stuck. Not because you're incapable, but because you keep training yourself that you are. Every avoided conversation reinforces the story. I can't handle this. Every delayed decision reinforces the belief, I'm not ready. Every time you make yourself busy over being honest, you drift further from what you actually want. And eventually, the gap between who you are and who you have the potential of becoming gets so wide that closing it feels almost impossible. But if you start practicing courage now in small, consistent ways, something different happens. You stop shrinking. You start expanding. You build evidence that you can do hard things. You reclaim agency over your own life. The world suddenly doesn't become less scary, but you become more capable of moving through it. This is the difference between people who plateau and people who move through. Not talent, not resources, not circumstance, but the willingness to act before they feel ready. Here's your one concrete thing to practice. Identify one conversation, decision, action that you've been avoiding. Not the biggest or scariest one, just the one that's been sitting in the back of your mind creating a drag, and commit to addressing it within the next 48 hours. Not perfectly, not comfortably, just honestly. Notice what happens. Notice the relief of no longer having to carry it. Notice that you survived. Notice that you're more capable than what your fear wanted you to believe. Then do it again. Courage isn't something you find. It's something you build, one uncomfortable decision at a time. What you're experiencing doesn't mean that you're stuck or that you're weak. It's because you've been avoiding the very thing that will set you free. Stop organizing your life around what feels safe. Start organizing it around what you actually want. The fear won't disappear, but but your relationship to it will change. And that changes everything. If this is landing, go ahead and like the video. It helps this reach more capable people like you, but that are in this kind of transition. I'm currently running this beta, which means you get the first month free. If you're functional and still executing, but unclear of what's right anymore, this might be exactly what you need. Find the link in the description to book a call. When your usual efforts stop producing results, I help capable people like you know what to do next.